What's going on, everybody? It's Krusty O'Crow back again, doing another tactical perspective toy review on a G.I. Joe classified or retro line release. Today, we're going to cover the retro G.I. Joe Trooper, the generic troop builder for the Joes, one of rare troop builders for the Joes that we have. That comes with his own file card, so that's going to be the reference that we use today for the tactical perspective. I'm going to use this file card to decide on whether or not these guys are doing their job, give them that play grade, that tac grade, that je ne sais quoi grade, French Canadian for I don't know what, but there's something going on here, and I'm going to have some fun. This is the kind of set that I think is important to the line as far as them growing the line and giving us a few more options for imagination that we didn't have back in the day. I know a lot of guys that don't like to buy third-party kit and throw it on their existing Joes because they want those Joes the way that they were released out of the box. But they constantly say, "I like the third party kit," and I think this is a wonderful opportunity for somebody that wanted to maybe play around with third party kits, such as toys, pew pews from Retro Fun 3D toys, or 3D printers like Turk Murphy or Loki Wartooth or the others. This is the kind of character that you could just load up, even with gridiron stuff, and never touch your Joes and be satisfied with. So I see a lot of appeal on this for different types of collectors, and for myself, it's just another bunch of troops to slap in there. But these support troops are important to the line, and we're going to give it that look. So let's open them up and let's have a look at the kit and start off with that new file card that they're giving us. Okay, so you guys can see, like all retro cards, they're going to have their own version of the file card on the back. It's never as extensive as what they used to do back in the 80s and 90s, but it's there and it's written in multiple languages for all of us so that we know, because knowing is half the battle, right, gents? This one, of course, is coming out in the same wave as the bat, and on the front box art, this one's a little bit more palatable than what we've seen in the past, but it's still kind of computer AI looking, but less, you know, less enticing to count fingers and things like that. We'll leave it on that. But there's your layout of what you get, all the kit, the different options. Let's read that file card together. All right. So it says, G.I. Joe troopers are the unsung support staff that keep the G.I. Joe Special Operations Force functioning. Although among their many vital tasks, these green shirts provide infantry combat, tactical support, material supply, vehicle maintenance and repair, and sentry duties. Without these grunts backing up our heroes, the G.I. Joe team would fail in their mission of defending against Cobra. So a pretty generic overview of the guys in the background, right? They're not the guys in the chairs. They're just the guys that do all the cleanup afterwards and the unglorious stuff that has to do with combat when G.I. Joe is involved. So let's open them up, have a look at some of that kit and the options that they're giving us for this guy. All right, guys, it's the next day. We've left off at reviewing the file card for the G.I. Joe Trooper. The generic support element that he is. I bought two of them so I could have both ethnicities represented when I did the video. Again, before I get into the kit, I'm going to remind you, this is not the kit that's going to please some people. It might actually upset some people. I am not one of those people, but I acknowledge some of the reasons they might get upset. For the standard retro card price, the Hasbro, in an effort to expand their lore, have created this generic troop builder that isn't Steel Legion or Steel Corps. The green shirts, which have always existed in the Joe lore, and they made a figure for them finally. And I'm sure they've appeared in other iterations throughout time, but we finally get them. Where people might get upset is there is nothing special going on here. It's all reuse with a couple of new heads. I think these heads were even, I don't know if they're the ESU heads or they're not. I don't think they are, but they're very, very similar in their designs. Like, not that many changes between them. What you are getting is a ton of recycled parts. So you get the Sunbow laser rifle. You're going to get your blast effect ports, and it's going to get hit with a couple of bits of green paint. And this one seems quite bendy, but you're also going to get the M3 pulverizer that Stalker carried around and that Duke carried around. And because that's an older design, it seemed like they were using older plastics for that. They hit that with some paint and we were good. So I'm not quite sure how all the plastics are working over when they start looking at some of the reuse. So two key weapons that we've seen an abundance of, you're not getting anything special. So that's what I kept saying earlier about, if you're wanting to sample some 3D printer guys and you want to build your own Joe, this is a great way to start rather than maybe converting an existing Joe that you're not comfortable with because you paid so much and he's part of your numbered collection. Retro cards are not part of your numbered collection, so this is almost like a license to have some fun, guys, and to replace this kit as you see fit. For myself, I have enough extra stuff from guys like Turk Murphy or John over at Top Fun Retro Toys 3D, or so even some stuff left over from the 3D prints that Loki Wartooth had, where I'm not worried about these Sunbow weapons. I don't need them and they'll go off to the side. However, I have paid for them, haven't I? And this is why I see where people might get upset. Here we got our little technical pistol, blast ports, no problems, grit paint, no problems. And we got our little knife here, which isn't big enough for its sheath. It's actually pretty small for its sheath, but it fits nice and snug in there. So better the sheath be too big than too small. And you'll notice that we get the holster on there, the same one that we get with most Joes. I get the sidearm like Stalker and whatnot. It has this place for a silencer that he does not get because he is a generic nobody Joe. Nobody Joe. Nobody Joe gets nobody weapons, but you also get the Duke helmet, right? So that's part of the the Joe look is to get that old style OG-13 style helmet on there. Then of course they're almost like Joe's, right? So you get that helmet on there, and it's got that fingernail clip of a visor there that you can fold up and down, transparent. I think we'll see something like this perhaps with Flash or Grand Sam if they don't, you know, make them fancier. But that's the kit you're getting with this, and then they complete it all with a stand for you, and then two different head options, two different flesh tone options with two different hand options. You have your trigger fingers or you have your fists. And that is what you are getting at the standard big price. So for Canada, these are about $36, $37, plus tax. But we talk about the increase in price. Uh, all this with reuse and things like that, there is nothing exceptional about this figure. So let's look at the buck. Maybe that's exceptional. And it is. This is to me what makes the figure good, right? We get a very good OG-13 looking, as I knock his partner over, plain old trooper. There's nothing exceptional about this guy. This is for people that like vanilla ice cream at Baskin Robbins and 31 flavors available that they turn down. They want something plain with symmetry. So we've got some two-tone green with some brown paint apps on there. And then what I really like is how this brass kind of, this gold buckling kind of stands out. They've hit some paint where they need paint, some grays in there with the grenade and the knife handle and things like that. But just a very simple web gear with a knife scabbard and a pistol. That's it. No backpacks, as I show you the back, right? Very plain buck. But the butterflies on this are actually very good. You can get your T poses, you can get your Van Dams. All the standard points of articulation I actually found were pretty stiff getting this guy out of the box. He did need a bit of a hair dryer treatment. Things were locked up. What I did also notice is that neck was really locked into that head, and I had to heat that to free that up because, unlike with Marvel Legends, classified using that 2-point neck and head system, I have yet to check and see if these neck and head sets are interchangeable with the ESU. I think they might be, unless they really messed up the second diameter of this, right? But playing with the combinations of necks and heads or removing both might unlock some different characters if I decide to buy more than just the two of these, right? Two of these I bought to go into the back of my lab because, like I said, I grew up with Star Trek, and the biggest rule you learned in Star Trek was never get attached to a guy in a red shirt unless it's Scotty, right? If you are attached to an away mission with a bunch of the most popular people in there and they don't even know your name, you're probably not coming back from that away mission. This is sci-fi fantasy lore. This is the logic, right? These are the obvious characters that you can throw into your thing that these guys take all the bad jobs. They say the sentries and manning positions and whatnot, but maybe this is the guy that takes a flying serpent spear for Duke for you if you had to have, right? But yeah, the red shirts in Star Trek, you knew they weren't coming back, and I view the green shirts the same way. So no emotional attachment here. What I'm just showing you is just a very basic, good action figure with boring ass kit, and it's
justifiable that it's boring only in that a lot of us collectors like to play with some of that 3D parts. But it's boring as in we also paid for it. And I'm getting bored of complaining about the weapons with these purchases, right? They know enough to put paint on them. They know enough to, give us some good nods with good helmets and good bucks. But continually, I feel like we're paying for lackluster weapons in this series, and often when I really think a character has a good piece of impact, it's often the weapon that I think is the game changer for them when I see things going into it. So maybe I didn't expect anything glorious with these guys, right? But at the same time, this is why I say these won't be for everybody, because guys, troop building is getting more and more expensive, and it should come with the kit you want with that already. You shouldn't plan to replace things. So I wouldn't recommend these for people that have issues like that. That means something to them. Punchy fists and trigger figures, and then sunbow weapons. That's all you're getting here, guys, and some fun kits for you to do a lot of customs and conversions with. So let's give it those grades. Yeah, I really like these. I really do for myself, for the numbers that I bought them in. But I don't really. I knew I wasn't gonna like the kit. So on attack grade, I've got to give them. I'm gonna give them a I'll give them a 4 because they are coming with the basics, like close combat weapons, some long range weapons, support weapons, protection, and that's about it. For Hasbro, I'd give them the 4 as well. At least you did this in the retro line. This is one of the few troop builds that came out this year that wasn't a deluxe figure cost, which is nice to see, right? So yeah, I'll go 4 on tack on this one. I would have liked to have seen some comms gear added to them, like a little personal radio. If you think about rock and roll and the 60th anniversary, Soldier, giving them that little radio with a post there, or the handset like we saw with Law and Order and ESU. I think that's important because we've gone to specify that these guys are often doing things like sentry and resupply and whatnot, so they would need comms with hire. So that's the only correction I would give them tactically. They don't need bags, right? I drop these guys off on day tasks and wouldn't put them out overnight if they're just supporting. It's all good. So for play though, that's where I'm going to dig them. I'm going to give them just a 3 on play. You got a really good figure, but you've got nothing to write home about the kit. Now I wouldn't pretend like there is. This is all about you doing your work, not Hasbro having done theirs. They've just given you a very acceptable figure for it. So I will give them 3 on play and nothing more. I don't care about bases. They're just expected on this. The ethnicity, that's a gimme right now. If you want to sell them, you're going to sell them to all your markets. So having flesh tones in there, but phoning it in with these weapons and then not even including the backpacks as part of it, that's just lackluster at best. So there's your play. On the je ne sais quoi, I'm also going 3. I like that we have this kind of a troop build. I'm going to make a bunch of different characters out of these guys. I know I will over time, but in a market that's gone up in cost recently, um, these inclusions, they give me no faith as to you know uh, no faith as to these being my you know figure of the year or anything like this. In fact, it's more just like 2 is good enough. I maybe could have just settled for 1 because at that price, I really felt the reuse in there. So it doesn't break the figure for me. Like I said, I like these figures. I don't give them great grades. A 4, 3, and 3 is not great, especially for a troop builder. But, there's parts of me that love just the generics of it. Like I said, my green shirts are my red shirts. They go on missions. They get mad that they get picked. I mean, what do you mean I gotta go out with the Joes? That means I'm not gonna make it, But it's whatever you do with your brain cannon that probably completes your collections for you. But let me know what you think. Do you think this is worth the standard fig cost? Were you excited about getting some generic troop builders that maybe you had plans for? Do you like the colors that they use for this? Does that copper bother you? I actually like it, but it might bother other people. Just hit me up in those comments because you know how it is, guys, with this channel. The like, the share, the subscribes, and the comments are what drive us, guys. So I'm going to end this with my last grade. Like I said, the Je ne sais quoi being a 3, and I am calling it on this one. That's going to do this review. Not a not a great purchase, a fine figure though. But I wouldn't blame anyone for missing out on these and not feeling it at all. These were never going to be for everybody. So thanks very much for watching the tactical perspective, and I'm going to catch you guys on the next one real soon.